in the UFO casuistic. They didn't speak about reptilians. This guy lives in a village in Puerto Rico. He's not in contact with anyone in the UFO world. He hasn't got information. Linda Montoja, the great American researcher, had posted and published a kind of beings that are very, very similar. This is also from proceedings. That case here was very interesting to me, and that's why I'm also interested in the reptilians, like the manti-religious mantids, as it is being said by investigators and abductees. They are the most dangerous ones. I'd like to say that the grays that we saw at the beginning, they are probably responsible for 80% of abductions, and most of the abductions and abductees generally are women. I wouldn't be able to talk, nobody can talk about abductions without remembering these men, David Jacobs, Pat Hopkins, and John Mark. Between around the 80s and 90s, they were the investigators that studied more cases. It was a time where all the abductions reached the top point, and then they started going down. And for the reason, what I will tell you later is my opinion. I haven't read it. It's my deduction based on the facts that I have. In this time, there were books published, very important books about these subjects from these authors and others. Let's leave it here and let's go back to them later on to see what happens when I speak and I explain my little conclusions about it. The abduction subject, normally, when it happens in the exterior, the person is on a field. Usually, he or she is in his car, traveling during the night, alone, or together with a family or friends. The abductions can also be multiple. In this case, they see a light. The light comes closer. Usually, there are electromagnetic failures. The engine doesn't work. The light is getting closer and closer. And suddenly, they don't know what happens, but they realize that you're back in the car. And there is a missing time, but normally they don't remember what happened during that time. In this case of abductions, and also on the other one that happens inside the homes. The subject doesn't usually remember anything. It seems that only 1/4 of the abductees remember their history and what happened in their abduction. Some other people have literal memories as if they had been dreaming something. Sometimes they have a bad taste in the mouth or some physical symptoms that we will talk about. That's how abductions happen usually outside. When we are not in a car, we can see a light beam that's there, and people are taken from there. And this is a slide, it's a recreation from the kidnapping of Travis Waldorf, as I said. It's a case that I like very much. It's very famous. It was very famous. Eileen Hynek said that this case was authentic. He had his enemies, but we can explain why these enemies were there. There's a very well-known hypnologist that because the Lorenzen couple were investigating the case and they wanted to monopolize it, he wanted to study, and then he spent some time speaking bad about this man. This is all what happened in the press in the small town in Arizona. They had to go through the test, to the truth test, we are not sure that it's truly 100% because the subject may not be lying, but he may be explaining what he thinks that happened. This is not the case in this case. I think this is authentic. These are the beings that Travis saw. They had a kind of a bubble around. These are scenes from a film that came about the case in which there were other beings as well, and other beings that were unclear. And then we had Paramount had made a film out of it, Travis Walton, and the fire on the skies. He didn't agree because they wanted to get the case into something, get some more information and things that didn't happen, and some of these things that are in the film are not real. But what's interesting is that the case is there, and I have had the opportunity to share for 15 days with Travis Walton, and I may say I believe Travis Walton is very honest on that, and of course there were some critics afterwards, and probably there were things related to the CIA. In case of Travis Walton, I don't think that this has nothing to do with CIA. Fire in the Sky, that's the book he published. Not his biography, but his story. And here I am interviewing him. It's a long time ago, many years ago. The people that are kidnapped from home, it also usually happens during the night, and the person is alone or together with somebody else. He wants to scream, he wants to move, he wants to tell the husband or the wife, but he cannot even articulate a word or a movement. And that's what they explain, is that they are taken out of the bed, and these aliens go through and avoiding all the physical rules. They go through walls or through the windows and taken into a craft which is close by, or to a base, extraterrestrial base, or at the bottom of the sea or in a mountain, and then they are analyzed, medically analyzed and researched. There is something that has been happening for many years, and it has all the investigators, because it's a mystery. Ufology has changed. Well, yeah, the society has changed, we have changed, but we are still at the beginning of it. I don't know if we will ever know what is really this UFO phenomenon, which is the origins, which are the intentions, because there are plenty of hypotheses, and each investigator usually has his own thesis, which is he adapts to his own culture, to his own way of thinking, to his own ideas, and to his own beliefs and things he wants to do. There is a very subjective concept. We have to say that in investigators we all have it, but something that takes us out of our places, our center, at the beginning when we started the investigation, we suspected that what abductees explained is that they said there were some grays, and then there was a grayer, another gray who was higher, and reptilians, and there were even military personnel there, and this was very crazy to us. We thought this couldn't be true, that we should leave it there. And obviously everything works. Sometimes we take a case and we throw it to the bin, but later on, some time goes by, and then we want to go back to this case, because then we start finding a wave of cases that explain exactly what that guy explained, and that we didn't believe because we thought it was we were not able to understand. And what we see is that different typologies are together around these tables when these medical examinations take place. We have proof of hypnosis, what was considered the most truthful because it's not 100% truthful. I don't know the percentage and how much the percentage is. I have practiced hypnosis with abductees, maybe some of them are very young, and some of you are very young, and you'll know this is Mr. Fassman. And I had the opportunity to practice hypnosis with him. That was the first course. The first group was with odontologists. That's the first course of hypnosis. And they were there to learn to anesthetize with hypnosis and not go through it through injections. And then we have perfection hypnosis with Bob Hopkins in New York when he worked. I say he worked in the past because he died, and he was really unhappy because of his life and because he didn't like what the system had done, and I will tell you about it now. Let's see what happens, the changes in the abductees. I told you that only 25% remember the story, and the rest remember little pieces, has little memories. But the person in general is never the same again. He experiments different changes in different states intellectually. The person develops interest for knowledge. He wants more knowledge, and he goes to congresses. He wants to know unexplainably. He wants to know about astronomy, the universe, in a moral, ethical part. The person is more empathic. It starts being a volunteer from time to time, and without even knowing why. He feels a little bit more like a unity with the universe. He feels more empathy, not only with people, but also with animals, and in general with the environment. In the psychic and emotional part, he experiments changes. He gets very angry, easily angry, and develops phobias, which are related. If the abduction took place in bed, at home, they developed fear of being alone at home at night, or sleeping with the lights off. This is unexplainable, or to a window, or to a precise place in the garden. And they change as well in the spiritual transcendent part. They want to know more about religious subjects, comparing religions, how many messiahs have been, because Jesus Christ, Krishna, reincarnation, they are worried about transcendency. In the physical plane, they also experiment changes. Oh, this one, we cannot see it very well. Quality is not very good because it's so big. Sometimes there are some marks that they appear in parts of their body, ears, feet, stomach, genital organs, and they don't know where they come from. They haven't done them themselves consciously. Some of the people have said that they have an implant. The ones that remember that they have been sticked an implant, and they appear. These implants appear, even the person doesn't know or doesn't remember, because the person doesn't feel comfortable, because there's some place in the body that it's hurting, or maybe by a normal checkup by the doctor. John Lear, together with Salvador Freixedo, is one of the professionals, the health professionals, that I believe, together with Sims and some others, he is particularly a very good person. This is very, very important, that you meet somebody and you say, oh, yes, he's not only a good investigator, he's also a good person. And that's the reason why we have taken him here. He got a couple of surprises because he found some implants. I'm not going to read and explain all of it because it's a lot of work and a little bit boring, the characteristics of the implants. But what caught his attention is that some of them had some metals and other materials in it, and there were also human cells. Other implants that haven't been seen in a human specter. For example, Andreja Pujarich is this man that's here with Salvador Freixedo, is also already passed away, and he worked for the CIA, and he was in the psychotronic war, involved in the psychotronic war. He was very intelligent. He was candidate to Nobel Prize, and we met him in Costa Rica in 1985, where he spoke about the famous ELF that everybody started talking after this year. The extremely low frequencies that are very harmful, most of all for animals, and harmful for human beings because it hurts chromosomes and is very bad for the body in the mental and physical. He worked with a group of kids, children, in what's called the extraocular vision. And these children, they were with closed eyes, not closed eyes, they couldn't even see, the eyes were covered, and they were feeling something through the fingers, and the children were saying, oh, this guy has something here at the back of the column, and he had to draw it. And the rest of the children who were also in the session in this thermo-optical, they also experienced and draw the same. And the same thing happened to Jacobo Greenberg. I don't know how many of you know Jacobo Greenberg, the famous neurophysiologist from Mexico that disappeared. It's a mystery for everybody, friends, and also for the investigators. Here we are together in one of the trips. We went to Tula together in Mexico, and we shared a lot with him because he was working very much with shamans, Don Panchito, Don Luisito, and he was going after Alatis. He elaborated the synergic theory. It's very difficult for me to understand it. I wouldn't be able to explain it. Salvador Freixedo always said to him, Jacobo, now come on, now explain it to me, but in plain words, so that we can understand it. Jacobo Greenberg worked also with children doing extraocular vision, and he also found out a couple of implants in two different occasions with different children. As I said, most part of the people, abductees, are women. And apart from all the changes, the physical changes, some women say that they are pregnant, but either they are not married or they don't have a relationship at the moment, but they have become pregnant. And curiously, after 3 months, they go to the gynecologist, and the pregnancy has disappeared. They are sure that they haven't had any loss, that they haven't felt anything, but they don't have the baby inside. Many of these abductees have then been taken to underground bases where they have seen babies in containers, babies in incubators, and later on they are taken to other places where they have been able to meet their children, the abductees. This girl here, who is with Salvador Freixedo, her name is Krista Tilton, is one of these women that has been abducted, that had relationships with an extraterrestrial, and has some children that lives with the extraterrestrial father in these places, and she is one of the ones that informed about these incubators, these places that contain many babies. Gynecologists, what do they say about it? They have developed a theory, the syndrome of the lost fetus, and what they say basically is that nothing has happened. What I will say later on, I believe this is real. I believe this happens. Now, what I'm asking myself is that really the aliens the ones that do it? Are the aliens the ones that are responsible for the incubators? And later on, when I talk about the conclusions, I will tell you about it. Salvador Freixedo says and I have learned a lot from him. He says that these entities, whatever their origin, even if it's from now or from remote times, they have always been interested in what he called the 3Gs. Everything that has to do with genitals, genetical, and generational, because they are generally interested and they want to follow the generational sequence. What I have found is that there were people that they were being abused at that moment, and I asked them, did something happen to your mom? And they don't tell you that the mom was already abused, but what they say is, my mom saw this, or my mom went through that. And then you realize that this has happened to the mom, and that the grandmother had already seen something, a presence or something like that. And curiously, it's also important for the investigators. If there's a person that's investigating who has children, to do the follow-up to the children, because very possibly these children are also having experiences, this kind of experiences. I think this girl is in this Congress one of the days. I believe so. She is one of the ones that she believes. And I say she believes because they believe it 100%. Another thing is that this is real or not. But I think these people are honest when they manifest their testimony. And there is a kind of a group or league of women that have children, extraterrestrial children, and their children live in different places with their parents, their fathers, with the children of stars. And this is what we see, and the appearance of these children. Abductees and contactees usually bring messages, either because they receive them and they explain them when they go back, what they remember, or because they receive periodically messages in the contents. I'm getting faster because the messages they get are scientific. Usually they want to explain them how they travel, how their crafts. They like to talk about how the universe was created, how the earth was created, and scientific matters of any kind, the anti-gravity, whatever. They also talk about ethical, moral, religious. They also talk about their God and how they conceive religion. The reincarnation, they talk about life after death, their life, after their death, because they are not immortals, but they say that their life is a lot longer than ours. Messages, ecological messages, they tell us that we are being terrible, creating disasters, and that we are going against the laws of the nature, and that we should be better. They pull our ears. I don't know any of them that says that the climate is changing, but not because we use Dios or because we are bad or we throw plastics. Everything contributes, but none of them that I know has said that climate changes the heart, and that they are the bad ones, the bad guys of the universe, that they are telling lies, they are making us guilty about it, but they are the ones that with their microwaves emissions and their experiments in some places, even in Spain, and catastrophes, if we don't change that, something will happen, a catastrophe. And many of them in these messages, they talk about the big catastrophe that comes, the quantum jump to go into another dimension, and some of them speak about the 1,444 electric ones from the apocalypses. And they also speak about artistical things. Many of them are artists. I have lots of pictures at home from contactees that I have met that they were either painters or artists, or they started painting, and they draw as they see them, the soul. They take pictures of their kidnappers, so to say. This is the famous contactee Higgins. He was kidnapped for many years. He was a slave. I think he was a monarch, and the beings that visited him are kind of mantids or ants, so to say, very similar to the ones that I got brought by the guy in Puerto Rico. Let's see about
En el artístico, efectivamente, mensajes artísticos, sí. Hay muchos contactados, no tengo aquí, tengo en casa muchas, pero no las encontré, muchas fotografías de contactados que he conocido, que luego, bueno, pues, o bien eran artistas ya, eran pintores.
Extraterrestrial hypothesis. Also the hypothesis of the pre-birth memories. Macal did some investigations on that in close to California. And then on the other side, they took the investigations from Groth, who worked with neurotics, who he made them go back to the trauma of birth. And then he wrote the theory of the pre-birth memories. He says it's hallucinations, and they can be interpreted. We have to argument that, but I don't think so. Electromagnetic fields. Hersinger talked very much about that. We know that there are places that they have a special electromagnetism. Now, for example, Montserrat, or in Escorial, or different areas where there are sanctuaries, pyramids, or what, as Professor Darboy explains, where there's sanctuaries or temples, pre-Christian temples, and before that there were Celtic sanctuaries. And then this kind of phenomena can be produced, but also the people that have had some problem with the electromagnetic problem in the temporal bone, they tend to receive messages or voices in their heads, or visions, or mystical experiences. Naturally, they do it naturally, but this can be also provoked from the outside. A normal person, if it's bombarded electromagnetically, the temporary bones get unbalanced, and then you get projected an ovni, and you can see a perfect ovni, UFO there. I'm not worried about a man who tells you about an experience, if it's real or not, or maybe he builds his personal fraud so that he can be out on TV. There are many of them, but there are a lot less than what we think. The sensationalist press, they explain it and they say that you invented, but no, there's very little of that. And these very few, we can discover them and then we know about it, but then this is made big. What worries me is that certain secret services, to mask certain programs, certain experiences that they are having. I remember a long time ago I was speaking to Monica Williams. Monica Williams was in Atlanta together with Jack Mallet, and they were very good friends, and we were very good friends when we were there. And there was a case Goldsberry's. There was nothing published about it, but we were talking about it. There were some researchers came, they were not very well known at the moment, not Ballet or Monica Williams, and what they said is that there were many reports of cases, not only abductions or viewings. it was easy to see these black helicopters.
Determinadas agencias, determinados servicios secretos para enmascarar ciertos programas y ciertas
And really,
temas ovni. Yo me acuerdo hace mucho
I'm sorry, I got a little nervous now, and I lost my thread.
Esto era Mónica Williams.
I need a little bit more than 3 minutes.
Y con Jack Valera,
This is a picture, a very bad one. This is the gold Prince case. It's a very perfect case. Edward just won some, earned some money. It was a fabricated case. One of these cases, which was completely fabricated. With the helicopters, the black helicopters, the electromagnetic field with the projection of the UFO, and then it was perfect. The famous man, or the man who got famous and earned money on TV programs and so on, he bought a house for himself, a much better house. But you know what happened? He forgot to leave the previous building of the house that he wanted. He left it in the old house. This is very curious, peculiar. I don't know why they do it like that. I don't know. I said like that. Why bad people do it like that? Why do they create these cases and they make testimonies there? And then you can see the building, the small building, the reproduction there. And he goes to the new house and forgets the blueprint of the house somewhere else. And he left it in the old house, of course. Nobody believes that. But this is the way these people act, the way these people function. Okay, what I said before, there was the big confusion when we spoke about the people lying on beds with military personnel. It was published in a book, My Lab's Military Abductions, in where it was by written what many of us had suspected, that many of the abductions that were taking place at that time, at the end of the 70s, 80s and 90s, that they were not done by extraterrestrial, but by these people of the agencies, CIA or certain governments, that these abductions are very different from the real abductions. For example, when the abductions, the real abductions from aliens, let's say so, go against the physical laws, the real ones, the ones that these people produce, the people just go out of the door, they don't feel paralyzed. And there's no strong alien that paralyzes their brain or that does a brain scanning. All the things they are talking about. Many of the marks they got are made by the human military, my lab. It's one of the differences. People also get this bad taste in the mouth and so on. I go back to these three important people that we spoke about before, Jacobs, Hopkins, and John Mark. Why are abductions something that everybody wanted to know about? Why is this not so famous anymore? Why does it stop? I was concentrated on other things at that time. What happened with David Jacobs? One of the testimonies, they gave him a check, a white check, so that he would speak badly about him. But Hopkins, the sweet Carol, I met him. Nobody would say that somebody that cooperated with him in some cases and transcribed some of the things and worked together, that people would pay her so that she would speak bad about him. He knew that he published things about things, but didn't know if the person had lied to him or whatever. I want to say something. Some years ago, in Kabbalah, in a magazine called Kabbalah, which is in Venezuela or in South America, a big poster with some crabs. And they would say, the context is, the more they lie, the more they go around, and the more they contradict themselves, they really give more proof of being real contacts. This is a quote by Fresedo. Why do they lie? Why are they telling you this now and something else afterwards? Why do they say this was rectangular, but then it wasn't rectangular? Because really, when we are in our precise world, everything is, and something from another dimension comes, and it's real for us. Then there's a degradation, and then it's difficult to explain. But the witness lies, but not because he wants to lie, but because. But of course, what I suggest, you're out of time. So if maybe we can make it longer if we don't go through the Q&A moment. Hopkins died of cancer today, nowadays, knowing how we we get everything in the body, somatize things, and how Mr. The man that has been condemned for curing cancer, Hopkins also died by cancer, and without prestige. For the ones that we got to know him, it's not the case. John Mack they also tried to get on top of him. He was a Harvard professor. All his colleagues were against him, and he was killed. Just to say that abductions were real, and that abductees were not psychopaths, and they didn't have any pathology or any consistent pathology. They had post-traumatic stress syndrome as a consequence of the abduction. He was killed, run over by a car. I have to say this because it's my secret.
In 1994, Wendell Stevens, the Colonel Wendell Stevens, he had one or two surprises for us in a congress that he was organized. I was not invited yet. I was like going as a colleague, as the partner of Salvador Fresedo. And that day they introduced to us an extraterrestrial, Omnekonek, this girl. He came as a Venusian woman with a very cute, very young, very shiny clothes, like silver shiny clothes. Nobody believed in her, but she wanted us to believe that Venusians were here from Venus. So one of the pictures, as you can see, this meeting was not open to the public. The best of the Congress is not what we share here. It's what we do the backstage and so it took my attention. I was not very experienced back then. But after the Congress, they summoned us to a meeting, to a reunion, where even though we were in America, in the US, there were only three American citizens, US citizens. The second from the right, the ufology, the Branchi from Brazil, Rincon, the Russians, the Romanians. All of the #1 top UFOs were there. What did they want? What was the intention of those meeting? It's made so people just tell each other what's in their archives, like what is not really confirmed or investigated enough, but they have proofs of things that are going on, so they share that information. So they have their opinions, they give their opinions about this case, about the other one. So the informed people that they're trying to get involved, and then their mission is just to confuse the whole community. in the scientific world, there are some of them, the informers, the infiltrated people that pretend. So I've been with them. So one of them is Colonel Wendell Stevens, here with Fabio Terna. They were doing a tribute to him here. Wendell Stevens, he was a colonel, and it was dedicated to organize congresses and about contactees and abductees. But it was intoxicating, just mixing the truth with the false. So the real investigators are ridiculized by the big public. So that's how it works. And then these programs on TV, these ridiculous people go there and just to mix and put confusion into the phenomena. I was thinking here. I was doing an interview here, and with Robert Dean. So what he told me and what it was transcribed and into the interview was talking about crash UFOs, not about Roswell. And he was doing pole and crashes, how they transport bodies, and I was like, sure that he was telling me just lies, pure lies. And I told him, are you an informer? Like, say, no, I'm in a very, I'm threatened because of that, so you want to just disguise me. Wendell Stevens, what I show you the picture of the extraterrestrial, apparently the extraterrestrial girl. No, sorry, about the draw about the little babies in the incubators. So probably you've seen that. I don't think it's extraterrestrials creating hybrids. I think that they have used this to now doing their own MyLabs, and they are investigating the genetics. And we are not only eating transgenics. We are investigating scientifically. We're eating salmons that has this hormone of a human growing. The hormone is in the salmons. We're investigating humans to create for war purposes. Creating new human beings or transhumans. For that, we need a lot of people, different ages, all people, children. We need babies. Apart from rats and animals, we need humans to test. And I said like that, I don't need any bodyguard to protect me. So why these three men had to be ridiculized? Because they had a group of counseling these people, the abductees and the contactees, to help them. So they could sleep better? No, they didn't do that. They really talk about an issue that was exposing the government, and it was not ET, everything that was going on. So pretending to be an extraterrestrial, they would do through a MyLab, sorry, whatever they would want to do. Just like I'm going to read this, just this little piece of so I suspect that the babies that this man claims he saw, there's something very dark, because this girl, this woman, was a partner of Stevens in the past. So I got here 6 lines. Capital words. No one can escape. In the UFO world, there's a lot of myths. So it's very nice to say that we are threatened. We talk about this, about the other thing, or that we walk about from the for the government. Don't believe in anything. These people don't tell anything clear. And they do that in this phenomenon, the UFO phenomenon, or any other field. There's something or somebody that is saying what he shouldn't say. He has signed his death penalty. So that's what I think. After lots of years, the conclusion that I had, after sharing lots, after living lot, after being full-time working in this and with a lot of witnesses and information, I arrived at that conclusion. But don't really believe a word of what I've said. I said just honestly what I believe. Thank you very much. Thank you, Magdalena. I had a revelation. You can even have a Q&A turn now. I wouldn't dare to. The good ones, the white hats are letting me speak. So infiltrated. Wow, lots of information that Magdalena has given to us. So we're going to do 2 questions only. I don't want to go just further than the scheduled time. Miguel Muñoz is waiting. Daniel Muñoz is waiting. You stand up, please. Thank you very much for your conference. I loved it. I'd like to ask if there's any difference between the nature that the abduction itself, I like to see the difference. If there's any difference between the abductee and the abducted, the abduction and the abductee. So if there's any relationship in between the contactee and the abducted. So the contactee is very respectful with them, but the abductee is just taken just without any asking. I don't know where they take you. The contactee, it could be the contactee and abductee at the same time, but the contactee generally is happier than the abductee, and it doesn't have the syndromes of the post-traumatic syndrome of the abduction. So the post-traumatic stress syndrome, it was after the war, it was declared at least PTSD. They developed these phobias. So this it's tougher when we are under a big shock or a tsunami or any big disaster or a war. There are situations that we are not emotionally prepared for it. So that there is a very difference between abductees and contactees. Sorry, I don't know if I understand you properly. Dean, I was really was trusting in Mr. Dean. Yeah, me too. And I love him as well. Is he a suspect? Is he maybe a disinformation? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we did a room we did a meeting in a room with a big bed, and we were all lying in the bed, round bed. There was 5 or 6 persons there lying, and I was like, and yeah, I think I'm really sure about that he's just putting the information in this phenomena, and it goes to a lot of meetings. But the heart is working really good as well. Technology, the heart. Technology. The last question. Mrs. Magdalena, your information is very interesting. My question is,
Sí, y además yo se lo dije. Y además yo se lo dije, digo, es que tú me pareces un desinformador. Y además, fíjate, se lo dije haciendo una cama redonda en un hotel de estas camas de Estados Unidos que te miden 2 metros.
What is
Y estando tumbados todos ahí en una cama y tal, y no sé, pues como...
Can anyone please just what is he asking? He wants your opinion about, if I understand properly. No, I really lost it. I think we've lost in the we don't know the specific question. Can you ask again? Or you can say it in English and we can translate it to Spanish. Estaba preguntando del programa de la abducción. ¿Qué es este programa para nosotros? ¿Qué significa? ¿Qué dice sobre nosotros el fenómeno? ¿Cuál es el gran programa para nosotros? ¿Cuál es
Me gustaría saber.
I don't know. I really don't know. I like to know, but the last slide there was a lot of questions. I don't know if someday we're gonna know about the why happening, a lot of theories, and because there's so much disinformation that it's very hard to know what's real, what's not. I don't know what's the big picture. I don't know what's the big program about the abduction phenomenon. Hawkins used to say about the hybridization plan. It's one of the theories that never really make 100% sense of it. Especially Jacobs, when they published that book, he was really scared. So I'm really scared. But I'll tell you, I know about the reality of this. We are not alone, for sure. We don't know where they come from the earth, outside the earth, but for sure we always been visited and there's been contacts. I believe in the human being as a species, and I think we have to be better. We have to evolve. I think love can beat anything. And we will never know all the secrets of the universe, but we have to be better persons, better human beings every day, and help the ones that we are not as happy as us, not as cheerful as us. So we have to give them everything we have. That's what I've got. We don't know what's the intention. We don't know the last plan. Doesn't matter. We're still here on the path. We're still investigating. We're still growing and being a better person. Yeah, you see the stuff, T-shirts in the back. We are love. You can read in that.
Magdalena del Amo.
Magdalena del Amo. Big applause for that. Thank you.